Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing a full face of makeup. I'm going to be using the whole Backstage complexion line. So I'm going to be using Backstage Foundation, Concealer, and Powder from Dior. The concealer is new, so I'm going to be sharing my full thoughts on that. I'm also going to be using the Westman Atelier Mimi Blush. I did this eye look using the Oden's Eye X Anjelica Hela palette. And I used one of the new Merit lipsticks on my lips. So I'm going to be showing you everything, sharing my thoughts on everything. I'll have a couple of comparisons where it's relevant. So if you'd like to see all of that, just keep on watching. I'm actually going to start with a little bit of the Merit highlighter stick. It's like a balmy kind of texture. This is part of my Project Pan actually, and I really like this. This is the shade Cava. It's just a really nice sort of dewy base is what I'm using it as now. It works beautifully as a cream highlight too, which is really what it is marketed as, I think, but I like to use it underneath makeup sometimes too, just to get a little bit of that kind of glow going on before I put my base on. I'm gonna put a little under my eyes too, there, a little on my chin. Pretty similar to the Westman Atelier lit up highlight sticks. I kind of think of it as in between that and the Salt New York cream highlights because it has a little bit more kind of opacity to it than the Westman Atelier, which are very sheer, but it's a similar texture. Although I consider this one a little bit more of an oily, balmy texture, where the Westman Atelier are kind of a thinner feel to them. And the Salt New York highlights are more pigmented than these and a little bit of a drier feel to them. Now I'm going to go in with foundation, and today I'm using the Dior Backstage Foundation. This is not a new product and this bottle is new to me, but I've actually gone through a whole bottle of this right when it came out a few years ago. I bought the shade 0CR, which is fairest with cool rosy undertones. And I love the foundation and I just wanted to try it again, but I've chosen a different shade this time. I chose 0N, which is fairest with neutral undertones. I thought that this would actually be a better match for my skin. I'm always now trying to match kind of the palest part of my neck, whether with the foundation or the concealer. Sometimes you can get away with a slightly darker foundation if you're able to brighten up with the concealer. So at least the kind of brightest parts of the face are matching the lightest part of the skin on the neck there. I'll just let you know I do have a little ring light on today because it's very dark and gray outside. And if there's not enough light coming in through my window, my footage looks a little bit grainy. So I needed some help from the ring light today, but it doesn't really change the tones of anything. It's just giving me a little bit of help with the brightness. So I just squeezed a little bit of that 0N of the Backstage Foundation onto my hand. You can see that Freddie's back today. Now he's found some crows to look at out the window. So I'm just going to use my Real Technique sponge to blend this. So there's one thin layer of the Backstage Foundation. It has a very natural finish in my opinion, but because I put that highlighting balm underneath, I'll get a little bit more radiance from it, which is just what I wanted. And now I'm going to go into actually the new Backstage Concealer. These are part of the same line and the concealer just came out, and I was really excited to see that it was coming out because I knew I liked the foundation already, and also it doesn't have hyaluronic acid in it, so it was a go for me. So I got the concealer also in the shade 0N. I've swatched them on my hand. I'm just letting them dry before I show you the swatches so you can see how 0N in the foundation compares to the concealer. I think because I'm trying to get a little more coverage out of the concealer, I'm going to use my brush to blend it first. Might go over it with the sponge after, but brush is good for now. So you can see I definitely got some brightening under the eye there, which is great. just topping up a little bit on those areas of redness around my nose. And here's the foundation and concealer together. I've only used the concealer a couple of times before, but I've been happy with it. I've been happy with how it wears. I haven't experienced any creasing or bunching or anything like that. And I'm very happy with the tone of it as well, because it is a nice light, bright tone. I think if you look at my face compared to my neck, it's a pretty good match. I think for me, the things that really stand out about both the foundation and the concealer in this line is how smooth they look on the skin. They have what I consider to be quite a natural look. So there's slight radiance to it. Part of that's also coming from the highlighter underneath, but it has a slight radiance on its own, but more of a sort of natural matte radiance rather than a dewy type of wet looking glow. It just, I think, really perfects the skin, both in terms of the color and in terms of the texture. And the smoothness isn't something that might necessarily come across on camera. It's one of those kind of nuances that I think is much better picked up on in real life. But it really does, it smooths over the pores. My pores here are basically invisible, and the whole skin just has this beautiful smoothness and evenness to it overall. Now, I was gonna go in with my good old favorite Becca light shifter powder because I like the slight radiance that it brings, but I thought since I'm going in with the other Dior complexion products, I might as well use my Dior Backstage powder. This one came out last year. Again, this is in the shade 0 Neutral, so you'll kind of be able to see how everything plays together in the same line and the same shade. And I'm going to show you my swatches now, including the powder swatch, which is pretty hard to see. I think I'm actually going to turn off the ring light so we can just see these in natural light. So there's the foundation, the concealer, and the powder, which, yeah, you really can't even see the powder there. You can sort of discern it there. They all look quite consistent across the shades, but I did find that I was getting a little bit of brightening from the concealer, although I think in these swatches it looks pretty much the same, or even the foundation looks a little bit brighter. Seeing them all swatched here, they do look all pretty much the same shade. They have a little bit of yellowness to them. They're a little bit on the peachy side, so neutrals can, I find, either go sort of more toward the olive range where they have a little bit more of that gray-green kind of feel to them, or more toward the peachy side where the neutral means that just kind of balancing pink and yellow tones. Sometimes neutrals can lean quite yellow as well. I would say this is more of a peachy yellow neutral. For me, that's fine. I found lately that I'm really looking for more of those olivey grayish kind of tones to really tone down the redness on my face, but I had relatively not as much redness as I often do on my face this morning, so I think that these peachier yellowy kind of tones are working really well for me because I didn't have as much of that redness to cancel out with a nice toned down greeny type of shade. So I'm taking my Sonia G's Designer Pro Brush, going right into the Dior powder, and I haven't used this very much since I got it, actually, because I found that I wanted something a little bit more brightening in tone. This is a pretty good match to my actual skin tone, but doesn't really lighten like something like the Fenty powder foundation in shade 100, which has been my go-to lately, would do. This is pretty similar though to the Becca light shifter in tone. They both have a bit more of that kind of yellow peachy neutrality. Don't even really feel like I need powder with these products. They set down. The foundation at least is called a face and body product, so that does mean usually that it is intended to be somewhat self-setting because it's a product you could put on your body as well. I do think this powder is changing the tone a little bit. I think it's deepening up just slightly. I could be making that up, but that's kind of the impression I'm getting from it. but it is a really nice thin powder, and it does have a little bit of a subtle radiance to it as well. So I think it plays nicely with the finishes of both the other complexion products in the range. Now I'm gonna go into bronzer. I'm gonna use a little bit of my Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush bronzer in Fair, using my Katie Jane Hughes Spectrum number 5 brush. It's the angled face brush in the collection, not duo fiber. I didn't really set my bronzer area with that powder, but I'm experiencing no grabbing or sticking on any of the unset areas with this powder, because the foundation really is quite set now on my skin. I'm gonna take my Rephr 03 and do a little bit of shading around my lips with the bronzer. I want a bit more glow, so I'm also going to go in with my Kosas bronzer in the shade Light. This is a really glowy, nice, fair-toned bronzer. It almost has a metallic finish if you were to really put on a thicker layer of it, but in thin layers, buffed out really nicely, it just adds a lovely, healthy glow to the skin. Now I'm actually going to add a little bit more of that Merit highlighter. I'm just tapping it onto the high points of my cheek. A little bit on the brow bone, Cupid's bow. Then I'm going to go in with the Westman Atelier Baby Cheeks blush in the shade Mimi. So this shade was originally part of their holiday box in 2020. I didn't get it then, but they re-released it recently and I love it. So that's what the shade looks like in the component. There's a little swatch of it. So it's this beautiful kind of brownish, rosy, quite light tone. Let me show you without the ring light on. That's what it looks like in completely natural light. Kind of a tawny nude, I think, is actually how the brand describes it, and I think that's a good description. It's in the rosy brown family, but it's lighter than most rosy brown blush shades would be. So I just tapped that on what was on my finger, and I'm going to take the end of my sponge and blend that into the skin. You can probably see I have some irritation on this side of my face. I'm not sure what it's from. It might be that I just slept on that side of my face, but I have some little red marks on there. They're not pimples, but little bits of irritation. It just happens sometimes. So I'm not worrying too much about trying to cover all of that up. I'm just kind of working with it, and if it shines through, I'm not too concerned about that. So now that I have my blush on, I'll probably add more later after I do my eyes, but I want to get started with the eyes now. I'm going to be using the Oden's Eye collaboration with Anjelica Nyquist, which is the Hela palette. So this is going to be my first time using this on camera. I have used it a couple times just on my own, played around with it a little bit, but I'm really excited to use it on camera now. And it's actually been recently restocked. They sold out and then they restocked earlier this week. All right, bangs are down. I'm ready to start with the eyes. My plan is to go for more of the green and yellowy type tones. That's the type of eye I'm feeling today. So I'm gonna start out with my Sonia G Classic Crease Brush, and I'm gonna go into this kind of light yellowish green shade right here, which is called Rebirth. Basically, just cover the crease with that. And I usually like to blend my eyeshadow pretty much all the way up to my eyebrow because I don't have a whole lot of space. My lid is a bit hooded, and so I just find I get the best result and the best effect that I'm looking for by blending, using as much of the eye real estate as I can. Just washed all of my makeup brushes a couple days ago, and it's just so nice to have all clean brushes. I think I washed 65 brushes, which was, I had to do it in shifts because my back started hurting from standing at the sink for so long, but it was worth it. So next, I think normally what I would do is I would start kind of building darker mattes into the outer corner and crease there, but I wanted to try something a little different and just go in with the metallic right now, and then I can build more mattes hopefully after I add the metallic. So I think this is my standout lid shade for today. This is Golden Bridge. Beautiful metallic tone, nice chartreuse. Taking my soft shader from Sonia G, and I'm gonna just apply that all over my lid. It's going on all right with the brush, but like most metallics, I think, yeah, it benefits from being patted on with the finger if you want full impact from it, and it just gets it on there faster. What a beautiful color. Now I think actually for a more kind of easygoing and easy look, I would just leave it like that. I wouldn't build any depth into the crease. I don't think it's always necessary to get into all the shading and, you know, creating the shadows and the depth and so on. I think sometimes it's nice to just keep it more simple and it can still look really beautiful. But I do want to try out some more of the shades. So I think I'm going to go into this one right here, which is called Moss. A beautiful yellowy, mossy green on my Wayne Goss 06 brush from the Edit collection. And I'm just building that a little bit in the outer corner and then blending through the crease. You can see it actually didn't add a whole lot of depth, but it did kind of round out the eye and just solidified the color on that part of the eye. Next, I'm going to go into this shade, which is Deqy. Basically doing the same thing I did with the last color, but just with a little bit of a lighter touch. Let's top up that metallic. So again, with the Golden Bridge shade that I already put on, just tapping a little bit more of that there to make it really nice and bright and shiny again. Taking that Wayne Goss 6 brush with nothing on it, just blending the edges. I wanted to go into the lighter green metallic too, this one right here called Fluorescence. I'm going to put that on a brush. I'm going to use this little Morphe brush. It's the Morphe M213. Tiny, tiny flat shader brush, which is perfect for getting metallics into the inner corner. Mattes too, but it's because it's so flat and dense, it's extra good at picking up metallics. Just blending that through the inner corner and a little bit along the inside of the lower lash line. I got a little bit more than I bargained for, so I'm taking that same number 6 brush with nothing on it. Just blending a little bit. Now on the lower lash line, I'm going to use Wolf. This is the Sonia G Soft Definer brush from the Lotus set. Taking a little bit of that Deqy shade, which is the darkest matte I used on the lid, and just right on the outer part of the lower lash line and kind of blending through to create that continuity. Okay, I have to use this double-sided shade, the duochrome or a multi-chrome. I'm seeing kind of a peachy, chartreusey lime color, and maybe even a little bit of an icy blue or violet in there as well. I'm just taking that on my finger. I'm gonna put it on the center of my lid. Oh yeah, it really brings out, I don't know if you can see it on screen, but it really brings out the peachy tone, but not in a way that interferes with the green. It just complements it and really brings something special to the look. I think I'd like a little bit of that on the inner corner too, so I'm going back with that Morphe brush and topping off the inner corner with that shade double-sided. Always love a peach on the inner corner, so it's kind of neat to get a little bit of that peach feel, even though the main predominating tone is the green that's underneath it. Bringing a touch of that double-sided shade onto the brow bone there. So I would say if you're interested in this palette, it's great. It's everything that I hoped it would be. If you like the color story, then I would recommend it. Formulas are consistent with all of the other Oden's Eye palettes I've tried. And I've said it before, Oden's Eye eyeshadows are among my favorites, if not my absolute favorite eyeshadows. I just think they're really well formulated. And I think the other really special thing about the brand is the color stories. I feel that they present color stories that you don't see in other palettes, and paired with the excellent quality. And they have some exciting formulas as well. A lot of their shimmery shades are not just straight up metallics. Their metallics are great, but they also have those kind of sheer topper shades, and they have another formula which is almost like a pressed cream glitter type formula, but in a different way than anyone else does it, and it's not like chunky glitter. It's just very special formula. I don't think there's any of that formula in this palette, but it's in a lot of their other palettes, and even without it, I think this palette is excellent. I need a little bit of liner, so I'm actually just going to use this palette. I'm going to mix the shades Soot and Deqy, which is that darker green up there. Just use a little angled liner brush to do that. I'll put some mascara on, and then I'll come back, we'll do the lips, and I'll round up my thoughts on everything. Okay, I finished up the eyes. I also topped up my blush a little bit, and before I move on, I just wanted to show you a quick comparison between two Westman Atelier blushes. So this is Mimi, the one I'm wearing today, and this one here is Chouchette, which is kind of similar. I'd say it's probably the most similar to Mimi that's in the Westman Atelier range right now, but you can see that Chouchette looks a lot pinker, where Mimi is a lot more leaning toward the brown side. And there they are in completely natural light. And now I've possibly saved the best for last because I'm absolutely in love with this lipstick. This is the new Merit lipstick. They're called the Signature Lightweight Lipsticks. And first of all, I was really impressed with the packaging. Now, looking at images of the packaging online, I wasn't expecting to be impressed with it. I thought it kind of looked just very similar to something like the L'Oreal lipsticks, where they have the kind of clear top and then the base, and they're of course drugstore lipsticks, so they're not particularly fancy in how they feel. They don't have much weight to them. And I was kind of expecting the same type of thing from this, but I was so positively impressed and surprised when I got this lipstick and felt that the box was very heavy. So it is actually really nice and weighted. And this lucite plastic top is actually really thick. It's very substantial and has a really luxurious feel to it, as does the base, which is also a little bit weighted. And the presentation, when you see it and feel it in person, I think is so much more impressive than it looked in images, to me at least. It's really classy. I think it's unique. It's different from everything else. This is a really lovely, luxurious packaging, and the color of it is beautiful too. It's this kind of rosy, blushy caramel tone, which I love. The shade I got is Baby. This is what it looks like in the bullet. I was surprised to see how dark it looked when I first twisted it out of the bullet, but it does have a sheerer quality to it. So that's the swatch of it. That's a few layers of it built up. Let me show you a single swatch. There's just one single layer of it. So let me get it on the lips, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. Now, the only downside I noticed with this when I first tried it is that it does have a scent, and when I first used it, I didn't like the scent. It's kind of a sweet vanilla-y-ish sort of scent, but not like a straight up vanilla. I can't really describe it beyond that, but I felt like it was much stronger actually on the first day I tried it, and in the days since then that I feel like the scent has dissipated a little bit and I don't notice it really lasting on the lips. So you can smell it when you apply it, but it doesn't linger for too long, and I've actually come to enjoy it more than I did when I first encountered it. So here's what it looks like on my lips. It's built up a little bit. You saw me building it up in about 2 or 3 layers, and I think it's just stunning. I think this shade is described as a neutral pink, something along those lines. And I think that's an accurate shade description. I do find it's a little bit more brown than I was expecting it to be, but actually when it's on the lips, I find that it's a perfect neutral tone. It almost leans a little bit into the cool area, but not in a way that's unflattering or deadening. So I love this shade. It's a perfect everyday type of shade for me, and the formula is phenomenal. I have to tell you, this is rivaling my Lisa Eldridge lipsticks in terms of how special it is to me in formula. It's different from either of Lisa's lipstick formulas, but I think in a way it is kind of similar actually to her Lucent formula, and I actually saw someone had commented that same thing on one of my videos, and I'd had the same thought about it. It's similar in the sense that it can be sheer and it can be built up. It feels very comfortable on the lips, not drying in any way, but the way that I feel that this is different is the Luxuriously Lucents feel a little bit more slippy on the lips. The Merit ones feel less slippy. They lean a little bit more into the matte area than the Lucents. They don't have as much shine as Lisa's Lucent formula, but they're still very similar in kind of how they sit on the lips and how they look on the lips in terms of being a very thin layer. It just kind of envelops the lips in a really special way. It doesn't look or feel heavy at all on the lips. You can almost not even detect that you have anything on your lips. It becomes one with the lips in a way that it almost just looks like that's your natural lips. I wanted to compare it with Lisa Eldridge's Kitten Mischief, which is right here. So you can see they're quite similar tones, very similar depths. But if you were a person who found that Kitten Mischief was a little bit too peachy and warm for you, you might find that the Merit in Baby is just right for you because it is a little bit cooler, just a little bit more pulling on the pink tones rather than the peach tones that are in Kitten Mischief. I find the Merit lipstick wears really well too. I wore it yesterday and I had to go out to an appointment. I had a mask on. It was a physio appointment and I get a bit of acupuncture at the end of my physio appointment, so that means I have the mask on and my head is face down into one of those semicircular pillows while I had my mask on. And when I eventually took my mask off, I still had the lip color on there and it had worn really nice and evenly. So I really can't stress enough how good I think these are. The only potential downside is the fragrance, but that's something I personally can easily overlook in favor of all the other positives of this. I already know that this is a formula that I just want all the shades in it. I'm going to try to pace myself and restrain myself a little bit, but I especially want to try the shade 1990, which is a more brown shade. I think it looks beautiful, and I think that in this type of formula, that shade could be really excellent because deeper shades sometimes will really wear off in the center of the lips there, but this gives such an even coverage and wears so evenly that I think they've done something really amazing with this formula, and I think that with darker shades, this type of formula is going to be excellent as well. The other one that I would want to pick up very soon is the pink shade. I think it's called Millennial. So it's kind of a similar depth to this one, I think, but more of a true pink tone rather than a nude pink like this one. So I'm absolutely in love with this. I think they've done something exceptional with this formula, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in trying it. I'm really happy with actually everything that I used today. I just quickly talk about the other new things that I tried today. So the Dior Backstage Concealer I think is really excellent. I think it's quite a high coverage, natural finish, leaning more toward the matte side in my opinion. But what you can do also is mix it with something glowy. So yesterday when I wore this, I actually mixed it with a little bit of my Auric Glow Lust on the back of my hand before applying it to my face, and it gave it a more of an illuminating presence, which was really nice and kind of thinned out the coverage just a little bit. Very happy with the color too. I think it is actually light enough for my skin at its very palest right now, which is something I'm very happy about. And the eyeshadow palette, I think I've already rounded up my thoughts on it, but I would say if you're into the color story and you're interested in this palette, I don't think you'd be disappointed with this one. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. If you'd like to see more from me and you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I would love for you to do so. Thank you again so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.